of Community Conversations contains content related to sexual assault. Some content may be too intense for some viewers. We speak about these issues to educate others, raise awareness, and to reach victims and families who can benefit from learning about organizations like Beauty from Ashes Foundation. Stay tuned for more.
Welcome back to another episode of Community Conversations. Today, I am thrilled to have the wonderful Candace Miller here from Beauty from Ashes Foundation. Candace, I'm so excited to have you here today. I've learned just a little bit about your organization, but I'm wondering if you can introduce yourself and tell me more about Beauty from Ashes.
So, yes, Beauty from Ashes Foundation, we help sexual assault victims and their support systems. We try to help them navigate from where they are as victims onto their journey towards becoming healed survivors.
How did you get involved in creating Beauty from Ashes? Because you're the founder, right? You're the founder for Beauty.
Yes, I started it as a way to turn our pain into purpose. Unfortunately, about 6 years ago, well, it's not unfortunate, it is fortunate. It's unfortunate that it had to happen, but fortunate for the results. 6 years ago, I had my husband arrested for raping my daughter. And this was our fight back. This was our way of turning our pain into purpose. How do we help more people navigate through this? We experienced homelessness, food disparities, so many different things as a result of having our primary income earner incarcerated, right? And then on top of that, on top of the daily things that we had to deal with, we had to deal with the emotional side of it as well. So it was not an easy process. And what we want to do with the foundation is help other victims, survivors, get on the journey towards healing much quicker than we did. We don't want them to experience it the way that we did. I want to be able to take a lot of the burden off of their shoulders so they can focus on the internal healing. So if we can help them with housing, with advocacy, with those things, that's what our foundation is set up to do.
You had seen the gaps in the services that were not provided to assault victims.
Absolutely.
So remind me, just say again, it was housing. It was, go ahead.
So for our experience, what we designed the foundation to do was basically fill in the gaps for where we fell through, right? So we experienced housing disparities. We're actually homeless 3 times. The last time it was a gap of 6 months, right? And during that 6 months, I slept in my car. We hotel hopped. We did what was necessary. And so I can tell you that I really took my experiences for granted prior to then. Let me back up just a little bit and say why I took it for granted. The day that we reported the rape, I remember working with the detectives, and one of the detectives, with tears in his eyes, he was like, "Mom, you have no idea how many families I'm dealing with and how many of them do not believe the victims," right? And so we could show them proof, and he was like, "But you believed your daughter the first time." I said, "That's not my typical experience. You believed her the first time." And he said, and some of them, I know that they believe them, but they're concerned about their livelihood, And so I guess he dropped a nugget, right? So I heard this in the midst of what we were experiencing, right? And at the time we were not homeless. We were actually in the process of closing on a house. And but once he was incarcerated, I couldn't sign for it. I had to have his signature, so it just, everything kind of snowballed, right? And so there were a lot of challenges that we experienced. I felt like we didn't have enough representation. Some of the organizations that were supposed to provide help, some of them made us go through these treacherous, intrusive interview processes where they're asking details and almost questioning the validity of what we're saying. I'm like, but we have a police report, and we have, why do you further victimize the victim, right? So we have it in place where we would be the advocate. speaking on their behalf when it's time to, go to the different agencies, because there are some agencies that do have resources, right? They just need someone to help them navigate through it. And there are other agencies, like some of the ones that we experience, they ask you all these questions, and then they get to the end and they say, well, we don't have any resources right now. So why did you open up these wounds and you're not even equipped to seal them back up? Just for, you know what I mean? So
Right.
That's why we made it our mission to become advocates. We are in the process of getting, certified to have like our official certs to handle sexual assault victims, domestic violence victims, and those who are dealing with drug and alcohol abuse. So we have something naturally, to give back because we experienced it. But now we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's to make sure that we can provide them with the resources that they need. Mainly a safe space, and not just a safe space to lay their head, which is, the housing, emergency transitional permanent housing is what we're working on. But we provide them a safe space where they can come and talk, open up about what they've gone through, so that they know that they're not alone. So yes, it definitely came from a personal place. Filling in the gaps. There are some organizations out here, and some of them don't even know about each other. So we want to be a gap bridger as well. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I just want to be able to help people to move forward more quickly than we did.
That's absolutely beautiful, Candace. That's excellently put as well. Like you want to fill in the gaps of services and help individuals transition and heal faster than you guys did. I love that story. I can't believe the great work that Beauty from Ashes does for me, I think, and just listening to your story, is that you saw the gap, the emotional gap, the financial piece of it, the psychological piece, and you're kind of putting all those things together because it's a holistic way to heal, as opposed to like one organization does just this one thing, as opposed, and another organization does this, but they don't have the resources to give you those things right now. It's difficult out there in the nonprofit world, and I'm thank you for trusting me with your story and for sharing your story. It's awful that you had to go through the experience to go, but now we're on the other side of it and trying to help, as many individuals as we can. Again, Candace, thank you so much. But the emotional part, the financial piece, all those things work together. And you made it a point too to say there are some families who won't take that extra step because they're afraid of what's going to happen to them, going into a shelter or going in and losing everything.
And I'm glad you brought that back up, because that was the piece I wanted to come back to when I say I took for granted my experiences, right? So I am an Army veteran. And I also have some training in the mental health space. So I understood, one, I knew how to take care of myself outside, right? I knew where to sleep. I knew where, how to position my car. I knew that I needed to sleep like under the lighting and near a camera, you know what I mean? Like just in case something happened. I was also confident in my ability to defend myself if necessary, And so that, coupled with my relationship with Christ, I think I judged the people who did not just jump right on top of protecting their kids. I judged them, and I judged them hard. Like, how could you pimp out your kids for a roof over your head? How could you, and then we experienced the homelessness. I still would make the same decision all day, every day. I would still put my children first. Being outside without resources, without help, I understand how that could be scary for some people. And I'm grateful for the experience that I had. My military training, also being a Southern girl, I'm number 2 of 10 kids. So my parents taught us how to make a lot of a little. So I think I took for granted those experiences. So when one of the things that I considered when I started this foundation is I wanted to be able to make sure that the detectives that are handling these cases, that they can tell the loved ones, that they can see that they're afraid, because the violator is their primary income earner, I want them to be able to say, listen, I know an organization. So you don't have to sacrifice, your safety for your livelihood. And that's exactly why I'm so adamant about making sure that we do have the resources for emergency transitional permanent housing. It is an issue. I knew how to take care of myself. I'm pretty strong-willed, and so everyone doesn't have that. And I recognize that. I have the ability to speak through my pain. I can tell you, listen, I have this dagger in my back. It's going in about 6 inches. And and they're looking at me like, what? And then they turn around and they see the daggers in my back. And I'm telling you, I have about 32 seconds before I'm going to pass out. So I need you to do this, this, and this, So I
your strength and your experience makes you such a great advocate, though. And that's, your experience being a veteran, being 1 of 10, that's a lot.
Yep, I'm the second.
You have to be strong and you have to keep going. I'm same here. I'm 1 of 5, so we're always running and fighting with our siblings or whatever. But you're working for it. That strength comes through. That strength comes through in Beauty from Ashes. It comes through in the advocacy that you're doing and the transitional help that you're providing for individuals who, and we say this in the nonprofit world, like for those who can't help themselves, sometimes you're in that and you don't see a path, and everything looks dark, and nonprofit leaders, people in the community have to be that light to shine and say, there's help, and we're going to give you a hand.
Yeah.
And I'm hopeful that even though I know you had, not the best experience with some leaders or some community, you did have the strength to see now that sometimes the work has to be done by us. It's just like, I wish it was me when I was going through this, and that's the person that you try to become. So
yes, I try to fill in the gaps. Like what do we need? And honestly, that's how we created basically our mission. I sat down with my kids, like, what are we feeling right now? How does this feel when that happened? How do we fix it for ourselves, but how do we put something in place so that other people don't have to experience it? So my daughter and my middle son, that's what we did, and so that kind of created the foundation for what we present. And so in our mission, when I say we help sexual assault victims and their support systems, right? So although I experienced sexual trauma in my youth, I never addressed it, right? I moved forward in life. I'm like, all right, that happened. But this rocked my world. Or to happen to my child, it rocked my world. And I felt like there were not enough resources for me in dealing with it. If you're a parent and you're a good parent, when your child is hurting, you hurt. You hurt in ways that they can't even imagine, because we can put a bandage on their wounds and they can go to sleep. But while they're sleeping, I'm sorry, I'm trying to turn this off. We are, trying to look after them, trying to care for them. Or are they breathing? Are they, like, is she okay? I remember days when my son would be in my daughter's room, right? He's younger than her. That's 6 years younger than her. And I was coming up the steps to check on her. And he hears me and he comes out of her room and closes the door. He was like, don't go in there right now. I just got her down. She was crying and she finally went to sleep. Like, don't go in right now. Now, part of me is like, look, boy, if you don't get out my way, so I'll go see my kid. Mm-hmm. But then the other part was like, he was doing his part with his sister. He laid with her. He prayed with her. He cried with her. He put her back to sleep. Yeah. Created that safe space for her. But in the end, it took a toll on all of us, right? So he began to act out in certain ways, and then I know that my PTSD flared up, but I couldn't focus on it until she was thriving, so it was a sacrifice that I made. I didn't start therapy until after she was away at college, soaring, but I knew that I needed it. I knew that I needed it, but my focus while she was here was making sure, I love decor. I don't look at the mess behind me right now, but I love decor, and it's my outlet, right? And that is one of the services that we also provide, because if they do have a roof over their head, maybe they own the home or whatever, I'll come in and redecorate so that they don't feel like it doesn't feel like the same space that they were violated in. And so that's what I did. That was my focus, was shifting our atmosphere. Like once we did have our place, I made sure that my kids had their rooms were set. My mattress was still on the floor, but I didn't care. Theirs were set. So when they walked into their space, they felt loved. They felt, and it was huge for me. It was therapy for me to do it, to create something beautiful. And then for them to feel the love that I put into every detail, the safety that they felt like it meant the world to me, but it came with sacrifice. It came with personal sacrifice for me. So when I say, and their support systems, we want to be able to provide support to them as well, because it's not easy to help someone navigate through trauma. We feel it also.
Mm-hmm. I love the point you made too about your son was affected. You were affected. Everybody in the family unit gets affected. It's not, sexual assault victims. It happens to them, but it affects everybody in the home. And the support that you can provide through your organization is for the family. And again, that holistic approach of not just one thing, bringing everybody together. And I'm sorry you had to go through, and there doesn't seem like there's a lot of self-care, but there's self-care now.
Yes.
Yes. I love that you got your daughter thriving and soaring. But yeah, it is time, moms and parents, they need help too. And it's good that you had that realization that therapy is there, and going through your own and healing on your own too is, support is there.
Working on my master's.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And my master's in licensure to be a marriage and family therapist.
Oh, very nice. Okay. And they make you go. And when you go to school for it, they're like, you should also go to therapy because you got to work through these things too. So it's really cool.
Yep. And it's definitely beneficial. A lot of the things that I think that I did innately, it was kind of cool to find out that there's an actual diagnosis for that. There's actually a procedure that's,
Right.
A model or methodology that's actually something. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That's awesome. I'm glad you're going through that. That's amazing. I wanted to talk to you, just get back to the part from Beauty from Ashes and your logo and your slogan, your the things that you say for your organization. I find them so beautiful. I wonder if you can go into your logo itself is amazing. Yeah.
The logo is actually my hand. It's actually this hand. So I don't know if you can see I have a little beauty mark right here, but you can actually see it in my logo if you zoom in. It is my hand, and it is my hand coming out of the ashes. When I was going through my process, there's a scripture that says, I want to say it's in Isaiah. Don't quote me. It's about God giving you beauty in exchange for your ashes. He didn't offer me an exchange. He told me that I had to create the beauty from within the ashes. So while our life was still smoldering, he told me to already begin to work on creating something beautiful. And it had to be done with my hands from within the process, right? And so the lotus that's growing out of my palm, I have an affinity for the lotus because it can grow in any terrain, and it's absolutely beautiful. The colors are so vibrant, and it represents purity, right? That's coming out of this destruction. And if you pay attention to the stem of the lotus, it's actually my veins. So it's like the life in me is what's giving that beauty. So
that's beautiful. And was looking at your organization, was looking at your page, and it really just kind of, it's so symbolic, and it's so just part of, and I want to say the beauty that is you, the beauty that you bring to a situation that it's less than ideal. It's less than anything. No one wants to go through this ever, but you've brought such grace and beauty to it. And you're helping so many different people and helping them heal, which is the biggest way that we can concern ourselves with sexual assault, and also just talking about it. Yes. Because a lot of it is just communication and letting people know that not only is there help, but that this happens.
Yeah. Teach them early, because the conversations need to be had early. Right. For my daughter, she started to experience it around 12. But we know other people who experienced it in their early childhood.
Right.
And didn't know what it was. You know what I mean? Like exactly. I experienced it in elementary. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
We're not open to having that conversation. Yeah. And I think when we do that, we just stop ourselves from communicating and understanding people better.
Yeah. And one of the things that I can say about my daughter and I beginning to share our story, and even calling the police, right? Because the family did not agree with that. Mm-hmm. Right? Family didn't agree with it. They said, no, we handle this internally. And like, for me, I'm like, that's the problem. That's been a problem for generations. You guys handled it internally, and it keeps happening. So for me and my family, this is where it stops. I had a lot of people to reach out to us, men and women, young and old, to share their experiences. I guess that's where I was going. And our having the courage to say something, to do something about it, to be bold enough, it inspired a lot of them to actually come out. And even though they didn't come out to the world per se, they shared with us, and we were the first people that they ever told, And they were like, thank you. Some of them were actually living vicariously through us. I had many call to say, thank you for stepping up for your daughter, because my parents did not, or my mom tried to and didn't have the courage. My daughter and I, our first speaking engagement together, there was a lady there. I want to say she was 89. And she approached us and she said, we were the first people that she ever spoke to about it. And she was so inspired and encouraged, and she just spoke life. She spoke life into us. She spoke life right into my daughter's ears.
It's breaking that cycle. And we're here. This is the generation that we're using our voice as much as we can and making sure that our stories are being told. So I'm so thankful for you, Candace. I'm so thankful to have met you. I love meeting new people and hearing their stories and being inspired by them. Honestly, doing the work.
Yeah.
Connecting with people, for sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all your information at the end of this video, and we're going to be able to promote it through social media and make sure that everybody knows about Beauty from Ashes. And then if they do need assistance, that you guys are open, ready, willing, and able to transition people from the situations that they might be in. Yes. So Candace, thank you so much for coming on today, for sharing your story, and for giving us all that information. Do you have any, I usually like to do like a last word. Do you have any advice for anybody going through this now, or any words of?
I would tell them to just be encouraged, right? We had to sit down and say, okay, why did you choose me to survive? What is it in me that the world needs? It's like there was a reason. I know I was chosen to survive because I have a big mouth.
So I'm sure there's people out there, they were chosen to survive. There's something better for them on the other side. And I promise you, there's resources available, and we're going to try and help as much as we can.
Absolutely.
So Beauty from Ashes Foundation. Thank you, Candace. And stay tuned for more.